Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lost in Lorcana Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny DB, and I'm here with a couple co-hosts. As usual, I'm here with Germax.
Yo.
And I'm also here with Oberon.
Hi, y'all.
All right. As most of y'all know, if you play Lorcana, I'm pretty sure you know that said championships went on. And man, what I want to start off by saying is I had a lot of fun. It was really cool to see the competitive scene and everything like that. So we're gonna go over that, just to go over kind of the topics I'll brief you on the topics we're going to go over in this particular episode. And like I said, it's going to be set champs and review. We're going to go over the meta of set champs, what we felt like we were playing a lot, if we think whether or not the meta of set champs is going to reflect the meta at the challenges, things of that nature. I have a question from a viewer, from a friend who wanted us to kind of go over talking about like the decks that we use, how we prep for the particular matchups that we play against, whether we're on the play, on the draw, how we decide what to put in our decks depending on what we are going to play against, things of that nature. Then we have there's some new shifts, some new cards that came out with new shift abilities and song abilities that we haven't gone over. It's like new mechanics, so just kind of going over that, how we think that's gonna affect the meta when set 4 comes out. And then after all of that, I know it was a fan favorite from the last episode, had a lot of people talking, agreeing, disagreeing. It was super fun, but we're going to update our power rankings because the meta is always shifting. So yeah, let me go ahead and start off. Again, we're going to talk about set champs just in review. Like I said earlier, I had a lot of fun. It was really enjoyable. I went to, I want to say 5 total. It was 6 really theoretically, but on Wednesday there was a one and done round, like not one and done, best of one. And I don't really count that one. That was it was strange. It was not fun. That one was not really that fun. But yeah, ultimately, I guess to go over results. So I technically went to 6. I'll just count it, even though I hate it. I'll count it. I won 3 stitches. I top 4'd 2 of them, and I got second in another. And then the others, the one and done, the best of one, I don't even remember. I just went 3 and 2. I don't know where I was at. One of them, I bubbled out at 9th or 10th place because I went like 2, 1, and 2. So it was super weird. And I don't remember the other one. I think the other one was like 3, 1, and 1, but I got bumped out or something. So I did well, but I would say I fell a little short of what I wanted to do. It happens. You know, I obviously wanted the champion Matt, which one of the co-hosts here has had great success with getting a couple of them. And so I'll let him take the floor on this one. Oberon, how was your overall experience? Did you enjoy it? Before you go over any metas or anything like that, just like go brief over, you know, the events you went to, how you did. And again, like ultimately, how you felt, you know, as far as the competitive scene. Did you like what you saw? Did you have fun? But yeah, kind of go over just a review of your championships.
So I ended up going to 5. I won 3 stitches and getting first overall in 2 of them. So I got 2 championship mats, and then I got second place in a 3rd one. Mm-hmm. And the other 2 that I played at, I was winning in for top 4, and I lost on the most unimaginable luck possible. Like, this is stuff out of storybooks, man. This was not real Lorcana being played. Chances of that was astronomical, but I'll take it. And then I lost a top 8 match to a deck that was heavily favored against me, and didn't really have a chance.
Sure.
So 3 stitches, 3 mats. I would say it's a pretty good win rate overall. I'll take it any day. Yeah. But in terms of the actual in terms of the actual competitiveness and the play, absolutely phenomenal.
Sure.
I will say exactly what I was looking for, exactly what the game should be. We had people who were grinding the circuit. We had newbies who were just getting into meta decks. We had people who were playing just for fun and like, hey, I want to see if I can win something.
Yeah.
And the diversity of decks that you were seeing was exactly what this game needs. I think by having a prize that's at a high enough value that people truly want to go out for is exactly what this game needed. And it was enticing enough for the competitive players to not be like, this is a waste of time. So all in all, Ravensburger, 10 out of 10. Please continue this because this is what the game needs to continue.
Absolutely, and I guess I should have said, you know, a part of it. I played Sapphire Steel throughout the weekend, except for the best of one. I played Amber Steel songs, and I had a couple of unfortunate games in that one, and also on top of that, like I haven't played it since set one, so you know that probably factored into it a little bit with decision making. But and then also, so you, O'Brien, you played Ruby Sapphire the whole time, I believe, correct?
Yep.
All right, and the picture you guys are seeing up right now is just a Twitter picture of actually the very first event we went to. Me and O'Brien Germax didn't go this one, but me and O'Brien went to it the very first on Friday, the first day you could have it. Like 35 people that showed out. We ended up playing each other in the top 4. Smoked me 2-0. I would say they're close, but I mean, one was extremely close. I was one lower off the board away from winning actually, but winning game 2. But it was fun overall. And now moving on to Germax. So same question, you know, what did you play? First of all, go ahead and start off with that, but then go over your results and then ultimately how you felt Set Champs was, if you enjoyed it. The competitive aspect of it, probably the most, I guess it's not a sanctioned event, but it's the first like official competitive structured, I don't even know what you want to call it, events, I guess, that through Ravensburger. Obviously it wasn't held by them, like it was held by the stores themselves, but again, yeah. So what did you play? You know, how did you feel overall about Set Champs?
Yeah, so Emerald Steel all day, baby, gotta represent.
Sure.
I played in 6 and I got top 4 once, second place once, 2 top 8s, which I lost to top decks, but we don't got to get into that right now. A hard bubble at 9th, which almost made me throw up, and then only one event where I did not place. I guess the 9th counts as not placing, but the other one was, we're gonna forget about that one too. Overall, it was a blast, man. Outside of the hours on weekdays, it was, like Oberon said, exactly what I'm looking for a new competitive game. I think this speaks volumes to where the game is going to go. I think the stores that ran them did them just fine. You know, there were some melee issues, but I don't fault that on the store owners at all. 10 out of 10. I can't wait to see how it advances going forward. The only thing that I would have liked to seen differently is forcing people to pay in Melee when they sign up to allow people to get in that, because we had one where there were 32 max signups, not even a wait list, like unable to get put on a wait list, and we had 13 people show up. But I can guarantee you that if people knew that there was going to be opening spots, you could have got 10 more people that, you know, that could have been the only time they were able to play in one.
Oh, I knew. Yeah, no, I knew people for that specific event that wanted to go, but they couldn't because it was full. Or I think they had a wait list. I think they were at like 38 people, like total, and only 13 showed up. So that's actually something good to talk about. I didn't really think of, but yeah, I mean, to go over that, I agree with you, and I know I was saying that as well. And by the way, shout out to Questing for Lore. Thank you for the follow, and also the what you're watching on here right now is a live stream provided by Hobbies and Happiness. They did an incredible job. 2 amazing people, awesome channel. Go check them out. Hobbies plus Happiness on YouTube. They live streamed this at our first event. They had a live stream table and they were casting it, and they're amazing, awesome casters, phenomenal, hilarious people, really cool overall. And they let me use the footage for the background here, just so you know, didn't have anything just random up there. But it's actually me versus Hamza. So me on the right, Hamza on the left, and our top 4 match. And don't criticize me. I forgot to draw a couple off of Judy Hopps. I forgot. That's my mistake. I'm not used to Judy Hopps all the time. So anyway, moving forward, that's a good topic. Prepaying, I think, is something moving forward. I don't know if the Set Champs is going to be every single set. It's called Set Champs, right? But are they going to do it every set? Are they going to kind of do it at the end of their story for the sets? For example, like, right, Ravensburger went over that. This is kind of set 4 is a closing to the story that they've been building from set 1. So is this going to be like a 10-day special event Set Champs that they call it, but only at the end of the story? or was it just kind of like now we've gotten enough cards in the pool where we can set champs to go on every single set? So I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but either way, I think it is important that, and it's unfortunate because with Melee, with the extra charges, I mean, if you want as a business, you could set up the signups via different sites. But like the Melee with the tax on it, I mean, not that, I mean, other sides tax too, so it's not the biggest deal. But yeah, I think they're gonna have to go towards that where you have to prepay, because it does really suck for the businesses themselves when it shows that they're gonna have 32 people or 60 people or whatever the case is, but then less than half to half show up. And now for people who wanted to go there, you know, not a lot of people are willing. They have lives, you know, they have things to do. They don't want to just go and wait and pray to God that there's no or that there's an opening. You know, in a lot of cases there might be, but you know, if 2, 3, 4, 5 people go there to wait and only one ends up opening up, it kind of sucks that you took the drive, go there to wait. And so yeah, so I think stores are going to have to do that. It's not something that I love, but I think that that's ultimately where they're gonna have to go. I mean, Oberon, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think it's not that big of a deal? How do you feel about it?
I will say that the only event that I had to pay for had the most people show up.
Mm-hmm.
It was 32 people who had prepaid. 30 of them showed up. It was still a very big deterrent for people who didn't want to come.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, from a competitive perspective, you love it when less people show up because you have a higher chance.
Sure.
But for the love of the game, you need more people. You need people to buy in, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the prepay is the way to go, but you also can't make it like I saw some prepayments that were like $35, right? Versus a lot of people were charging $20 to play in it. And I was like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say I'm going to charge $35 and then also be like, oh well, but if you want to go to this other one where you don't have to prepay, you pay less for it. So I do think you were right. That is the way to go in the future,
Mm-hmm.
Especially because some of our mainstays weren't there a lot of the time that you were expecting. I felt bad about that. I was like, hey, I've seen you the entire time. Why aren't you here? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it is the only way to prevent stores from feeling like they're getting hurt, but also to allow the game to be at a respectable position where you feel like you're able to play at a good point in time and not have to roll the dice to see if you're going to show up or not.
Sure. All right. So now that we talked about that a little bit, let's move on to the second part of this, kind of a branch off of it. What we played at Set Champs and whether or not we really think it's going to reflect the meta that ends up going to Atlanta or Chicago. Well, Chicago's going to change completely with the new set, but at least to Atlanta. And for me, what I saw the most, and I'm going to pull up actually a picture here, a couple pictures. So I'm going to pause the video and let's see right here. We got just kind of the meta. A lot of people. So Inkdex is an incredible website. Inkdex. They also have a Twitter you can go to, and they have a whole, I don't know what you want to, they call it. They basically put all the tournaments with all the decks that are in there. They submit all the deck lists. Anyone who submits it to them, at least, because they can't obviously know every single tournament that goes on and all the top decks. But so anyone who submits decks to them from Set Champs submitted them, and they put in their database. And then the Forbidden Mountain, another YouTube channel, phenomenal YouTube channel. I know I've said it before. Go check them out. They do meta checks or what they call them, like weekly meta updates. And so this is from week 1 only. I don't think it's really shifted that much to week 2, but you know, I'm interested to see if it has. But at least from week 1, we see that Ruby Amethyst was by far the most played. Green Steel is the second most. Then you have Ruby Sapphire, then Amber Steel, Sapphire Steel. This is incredibly accurate, at least for the events that I went to. I felt like Ruby Amethyst was by far the most played. It was what I've played the most. Green Steel, second, probably same thing for me. It was the second most for sure. Ruby Sapphire, third most. That 100% I see. And then sprinkled in there was like Amber Steel, Amethyst, Emerald. I didn't see that much Sapphire Steel. On the Inkdex Twitter account, I did see a good amount of Sapphire Steel, like within the top 8s and whatnot, but I just didn't. At mine, I think I saw 2 total. And the same thing with Amethyst Steel as well. It's down here in like 7th most played. I saw it twice, and I played it both times. And so this is pretty accurate aside from Sapphire Steel. I didn't see that much, but everything else seems pretty on par with everything that I saw. As far as whether or not I think it's gonna reflect what we play in Atlanta, I think Ruby Amethyst will be played a lot, and I think Green Steel. I think the top 3 will be played a lot. I am curious to see though, since it's a different format. It's gonna be the 2-game Swiss format. You know, are these decks good going on the draw? Are people just gonna play more so what they're comfortable with? Are they gonna practice and see that, oh, this particular deck is better on the draw, which gives me a better chance at 2-0ing? And so I'm going to play this deck instead and really grind hard on this deck. So I am interested to see where the meta goes as far as the challenges. And I did see that there was like an article they posted about how they're changing the point structure, but then it was deleted. So I don't know where that's going. I don't really want to speculate on that. But as of right now, assuming that it's the same point structure, going 2-0, you get 3 points, 1-1, you get 1 point. And if you go 0-2, you get no points. I think we're going to see a similar meta. I think we might see an increase in Emerald Steel because I do think it does have a pretty good matchup against a lot of things going second, compared especially to some of these other decks. So, but aside from that, I think it'll probably be accurate. Germax, starting with you, do you feel like this is an accurate graph as far as what you played? Was this kind of the meta where you were going? You saw a lot of Ruby Amethyst Steel, Green Steel, Ruby Amethyst. Did you see something different? And then how do you think it's going to reflect for the actual challenges, or at least the challenge in Atlanta?
Yeah, it looks about the same. The only thing that's hard is I want to say maybe like 10% of the events actually made you do deck lists. So I really look at the graph with a grain of salt. I would love to see, like what they're going to do with Atlanta. You're going to see everything, right? You're going to see what made day 2, what made top 64, what made top 16, whatever.
Absolutely.
There was Ruby Amethyst. I don't think that I saw as much as the graph indicates.
Okay.
I think I definitely saw a lot more. I want to say I saw a lot more red blue than I saw Ruby Amethyst.
Okay.
In the few that I went to that
Really?
you guys didn't go to.
Okay.
Emerald Steel. Hey, put some respect on my boys, okay? That's what I like to see right there.
I hate so much that it did so well. Just because of you, dude. I hate it.
But honestly, for Atlanta, I have won more games on the draw with Green Steel than any deck I've ever played on the draw, and it's really weird. So I want to see my boys represent once more. Yeah.
I mean, shout out real quick to Hobbies and Happiness. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for the love. Appreciate everything that you guys did at Amazing Fantasy. Was super awesome. You guys were super cool. And again, thanks for the follow here on Twitch. But moving over to Oberon now. Does this reflect the meta you played against at the challenges? Do you think this meta for the set championship, at the championships, do you think the meta from the championships will reflect what you see at Atlanta, or do you expect something different?
This is definitely what I saw. I think I just agree with Dermax just a bit because I was playing Ruby Amethyst every other game. In the top 8 everywhere throughout. Because I was playing Ruby Sapphire, I had a good matchup against it, so I'll take it. But it was more like 60-40 rather than like a 70-30 type deal. I think that this meta will shift slightly, not in terms of the color scheme, but just in terms of the deck metrics.
Okay.
I think as a Ruby Sapphire player, I have to go more aggro to play against the aggro matchups. I think I can still keep with what I'm doing as a color combo and what the overall goal is, but I'm going to get obliterated by a Green Steel or obliterated by a fast Amber Steel type deal. So I think the color combos are still going to be exist because every one of them has a good matchup against each other, or in general has a good matchup.
Yeah.
One deck I was surprised to not see, what we had talked about before, was Red Fossa. I thought I would see more, even though we had ranked it last. But I can see that deck doing really well at the system because that deck is good on the draw or on the play.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter. So I think we're gonna see a lot more Emerald Steel for sure.
Sure.
I think Ruby Amethyst we're also gonna see a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while Ruby Sapphire we've been seeing some winnings, it's not good on the draw unless you have a perfect ramp hand. That's a problem. So I think we will see a decrease of that and more of Amber Steel as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Side note too, I really think that green purple is gonna go really higher too, because that's not bad on the draw either.
That deck was disgusting.
Yeah, I think you said Emerald Amethyst. Is that what you said? Green purple?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I like it a lot, and I think most people disagree with me, and at least if we're going based off people who are playing the actual decks, they're leaning less towards a discard green purple. But I did play it a few games. I tried it out, and I like it. It's smooth, man. Being able to have the combination of the discard and honestly, with the deck that I played, it had no Prince John, so it was only like 14 uninkables. And it might sound weird, like no Prince Johns, when a part of what you're saying is like discard. Why wouldn't you? I mean, I have rabbits, I have Queen's Castle, I have I can bounce the rabbits. I think I don't know if I played Maleficent or not. I don't remember now, but there's like 3 different ways to draw cards already that I just simply didn't need Prince John, and I didn't miss him at all when I was playing it. And it was really deadly. It was, and especially against, I played, I think, Ruby Sapphire 50% of the time when I was playing Emerald Amethyst, and I just felt so good playing against it, especially coming from playing a Sapphire Steel deck that's incredibly unfavored. But surprisingly, I do want to shout myself out a little bit. Last 2 days, I played Ruby Sapphire 4 times, won 3 of them. Now, feel good about that. I lost in the finals. I lost to it. That was the most important one to win, and I lost that one, of course. But and I don't, by no means am I saying I think Sapphire Steel is like favored now, but I think the build that I ended up kind of coming along with is a little stronger against it. But let's move on to.
I got one question, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Did you play against any Emerald Steel, and if you did, how did you do?
Why are you asking that?
I'm curious. It's the second most rated deck on the list. We gotta let the viewers know what your matchup is against that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I will say, I know for the viewers, you guys don't understand why he's asking this question. There's a very particular reason why he's asking the question, and I'm gonna start off by saying I did play Green Steel a lot. I lost to it. If I played it 6 times, I would say I lost to it twice. In a favorable matchup, and one in particular was an incredibly unfortunate loss against someone I just can't stand. And,
skill issue. Excuse me.
Listen. Germax and I played each other, and I had him on full tilt. And the most unlucky stuff happened, and I lost. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and move on from that. So moving on to the next, the next one. What
I
was
also played it 3 times, and the only loss that I suffered was against Germax.
Thank you. 2-0, baby.
All right,
2-0 against the boys.
Listen. Germax is a solid Green Steel player. I'll give him that. But in any serious situation that's not live in public to anybody else, he will tell you how unlucky my situation was and how I should have absolutely beaten him the 3rd game. Absolutely should have. Anyway, moving on again. We're gonna go on to the next. Let me go ahead and throw on this video again just to have something in the back. Let's move on to the next. This is a particular question that somebody had asked, and I thought it was a good question, so I want to talk about it. And it's talking about kind of our deck types. So and this is cool because we all play different decks, so we can kind of give insight to the ones that we play. I play Sapphire Steel again. Oberon plays Ruby Sapphire, and then Emerald Steel for Germax. But the question really is like, how would you change certain cards in your deck before an event based on what colors you predict being there, and how you play your lines, or how your lines change versus a particular matchup going 1st or 2nd? So that's a lot. You could probably make a whole video based on that in particular. Um, that's crazy. Anyway, I just saw the chat. That's wild. But you could probably make a whole video on this particular topic. But I'll go over. We can go over each one for ours and give our thoughts on it. So for Sapphire Steel, in case anyone is interested in playing Sapphire Steel, I wish I had the actual decks that we play, because then you can kind of get a representation of it. But for the version that I play now, going into an event, you always want to build your deck based on what you think you're going to play. That's just the best way. No matter what, every single deck is going to have a weakness, and so you want to adapt for what you think you're going to play. What's the meta at the time? What do you expect to see a lot? And so that's what you should build around. And for me, I have an example actually for the last tournament I went to yesterday. I happened to see a couple people with Ruby Sapphire, and so I expected to play a lot of Ruby Sapphire, so I opted to throw in an extra Benja into my deck, just because playing Ruby Sapphire, I don't necessarily need to ramp like super heavily. It is very helpful in any situation, obviously, but I want to quest as much as possible, and then get to a point where really my game is find dime and play dime, and then just play a character that is most likely going to end up getting destroyed by one of their 50 outs, but at least get the lore from it. So specifically, Bell, or being able to play Gaston to grab another card, maybe a Bell, or even maybe another lucky dime, and just finish and then close out the game that way. That's kind of how I play when I play Ruby Sapphire. And so having another Benja, being able to throw that down on turn 3 and disrupt their Fishbone, or even, the most common line of Popsicle, one jump ahead, Flaversham. I can pop their Popsicle, and now their Flaversham line is kind of destroyed at that point, and they have to figure out another way to go, or just play the Flaversham to have something on board in case they get another item that they want to destroy. And so that was super helpful for me in that particular matchup. Going second is incredibly difficult against a deck like that. Against most decks, I think Sapphire Steel is pretty good against anything going first or second. I actually often felt that there were times against Green Steel that I liked having that extra card in hand going second. At no point would I give Emerald Steel the option to go first, but it felt really good. And it's tough to say how much our line's going to change. Well, it really depends what you're playing, what deck that you're playing will determine, so you just kind of have to learn and play test a lot to really figure out, okay, I'm on the play, so I can do this thing, because going on the play, this is going to favor me. Or on the draw, all right, I can't go that route. If you're playing Ruby Amethyst, let's say, and they play a Cinderella, is it really worth playing down a Rafiki on turn 1? If your only play is Rafiki into bounce into Snake, that's just kind of unfortunate. But, I prefer to play Olaf on that turn. I just want to make sure I have that character on board and is likely going to stay on board and not going to just let the Storm Rage on by Cinderella and get taken out, and now it's it sucks. Or if Sapphire Steel, if you play Captain Hook, if you're going second, they play Cinderella. Why play Hook? They're just gonna take it out, So I'm just gonna opt to play Popsicle every single time. I don't need to rush. I'll take my time in that particular matchup as well. So that's kind of how I look at it. It's like, what am I playing against? I have these options, and based on what I expect them to do on the following turn, that's how I'm gonna play my turn in that particular moment. So again, guys, I'll start with Oberon. It's a really long-winded question. I'll read it again just so you remember, but you can kind of brief on how you play Ruby Sapphire against particular matchups that you play against a lot. But the question again being, how would you change certain cards in your deck before an event based on what you think you're going to play against? And how do you play your lines versus a particular matchup, whether you're going first or second? How do you kind of feel? Is there a general way that you go about it? Do you do the same thing regardless of what you're playing every time? Do you switch it up? Like, what do you think?
Sure. So I guess I play the Ruby Sapphire deck a little bit differently than most. I have outs in my deck, just included in general. I play more than 60 cards for that exact reason, because I have so much dig power. But I knew that before the set championship started, I added a third Judy Hopps because I knew that the Amber Steel Flute version was my worst matchup. And if I did not have an ability to get rid of items, I was screwed. So I knew that just going in because that was my worst matchup. So I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I made that tech. It was relevant. As one of our friends can attest to, who I played in my win and in for top 8, I had a Trips Judy Hopps, and he was like, there's no way. And I was like, well, I made this inclusion right before this entire season started. So there is a reason for it. In terms of lines, though, Ruby Sapphire is one of those decks where your goal is ramp and then removal. Like, that is the entire deck's goal.
Sure.
And so I think it definitely, you were right, it does depend on what I'm playing against. In the sense of, like, if I'm playing red purple, right? The goal is as soon as I get a dime out, that's when I win. Like that, because red purple has no item removal, dime is the win. Yep. And so if you can survive and either get rid of their aggro stuff or prevent their bouncing stuff, you will be fine. So I'll keep more removal, but I also keep the ramp in that sense. Against blue steel, right? They're gonna ramp in Whole New World. Okay, cool. I need to make sure I have as much ramp possible, regardless if I'm on the play or draw. Against Amber Steel, right? It doesn't really matter what I do because they're gonna get rid of my hand. But I'm gonna make sure I don't have that many be prepared because they're necessities to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Against Germax's Emerald Steel, man, that deck is. I hope I have a Flaversham and a Popsicle in my hand, because I need more card draw because he's gonna get rid of it. I mean, the combo is the game's entire engine. Sorry, the deck's entire engine, but even more so in the Emerald Steel matchup. And then against what am I missing? Like a fringe, not a fringe deck. Oh, against the mirror. And the mirror is such a pain, honestly. The mirror is whoever gets a dime first, you win, honestly. And you end up having to just be able to have the Popsicle combo in your hand, because if they don't have it, this game's over. So whether it's on the play or draw, I don't think I necessarily change up my matchup, my mulligan rules or the lines that I'm playing, but definitely in the decks that I'm going with, it is a huge factor. Now, with like Emerald Steel, and if you Ursula me, okay, well, whatever line I had, it's gone, and now we're gonna play a new game type deal. And so that's why I have a lot of lines available, more so than most. Like I play what's called the clock, whatever his name is, Cogsworth. And people are like, why are you? It was like, it's anti the beast OTK that you might see.
Sure.
Or I play Gaston, and they're like, why are you playing so many? I was like, it helps with dime.
Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers are a little higher, but if I'm comfortable piloting that deck, that's okay. I'm more comfortable with the idea that like I have an out available, not that, oh well, my deck can't even compete against this type deal.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, going over, that's kind of like my same situation, only when I play Amber Steel, like you said, you don't keep B prep because they're just going to take it out of your hand. Like that's just essentially you're playing discard at that point. So same thing. I don't keep a Whole New World. I don't keep even Fishbone in that particular matchup in case they can just get rid of that as well. And I don't want to discard out of my hand. So I'm going to get rid of any songs that I have and Fishbone and just try to win off that and hope I pull the Fishbone by turn 3 or whatever, so they can't get rid of it. And even if I do, they bench it, whatever. Ruby Amethyst, they don't have item removal. So same kind of thing. I'm trying to get to dime. And yeah, so with Green Steel, which had a really nice performance, so Germax, you know, go over that kind of your matchups, how you play when you're on the play versus on the draw, and how things how you maneuver based on the matchup that you have.
Yeah, so on the play, it's simple. You know, I want Ursula, I want Sudden Chill, I want Merfolk. Everything else could just fill the slots up, and Prince John. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, you know, I do want to put one thing out there too, that there are so many different ways you can build Green Steel. It's actually kind of crazy. I know of 2 other people. One guy ran Green Steel, totally different version, more on the higher curve side of things. He played at 6 events. He won 6 events. I know one other person that is playing an insanely different Green Steel list, all still revolving around discard, that won at least 4 events in first place.
Sure.
Against I just lose. That's why I wanted to bring up, and by you I mean
Sapphire Steel.
blue steel. Yeah, sapphire steel. That's just, I need to hope that you play bad or don't draw, and that's why I was able to just
or draw 10 late every single time.
Yeah, true.
I will take.
I will take the matchup against red blue all day. It's not an auto win, but the lines are a lot more clear, and you have a lot more chances of removal. And just once you get the board, then it's kind of hard for them to deal with it too, unless whatever always happens against me is top decking the only removal cards that they need. Going second, halfway through the tournament runs, something clicked in my head that actually started making me win a lot more games, is not questing with Merfolk and Flynn 2 turns after I play them, because going second, I rely so much more on the card draw aspect of stuff. And once I play Ursula and then they have their turn 4, they have pretty much every out to remove Ursula. So what I've learned is, I'm not questing with the 1-drop or the 2-drop necessarily right away, but once I play the Prince John, then I'm questing to ensure that I'll be drawing cards. And I think once I made that change, a lot of my harder matchups really started coming together because I had a lot more resources at my disposal, because I wasn't just taking the 2 lore, knowing that it was going to get hit by either, the Hook, the Smee, the Queen, or any of the other 1-drops out there. So that was a line that I've been tinkering with, and I've learned a little bit, and I definitely think that that's how you're supposed to play the early game discard going second for sure.
Sure. All right. So you got a little briefing. Honestly, I really love the question. I kind of want to go over or make a video just based on that and have us all kind of give more specific details on it. It's a little tougher, in a podcast. We don't want to spend too much time on it and then just have that take over the entire podcast. But what I'm noticing from this video, kind of looking over at it, Oberon, is that when we played, I was afraid you had freaking Queen of Hearts in hand, so I didn't quest with Captain Hook, which you didn't have. So I would have ended up winning since I was 1 lore off from winning in that game too. But hey, it happens. Sometimes you just can't be scared, and you learn that from certain mistakes. You just got to go for it. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like I said, it's really dependent on what you're gonna play against, what you think you're gonna play against. Again, yesterday I was deciding to either add Baboom into my deck or an extra Benja. I saw Ruby Sapphire, thought I was gonna be playing that most of the time, so I threw in a Benja, and I played a lot of green steel too. So I could have thrown in I didn't play a lot of green steel, but I played it, and Baboom would have helped as well. But it's those decisions, and ultimately you got to decide what you're gonna play against, and you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Is that the saying, right? Ultimately it's just, is it worth it? That's what you got to think. I'm playing this. If I end up not playing this and I lose, I can only assume what I'm gonna play and make my decisions based off what I expect. And if it doesn't pan out, that's just how it is. It's not going to work out every time. So we're going to move over now to the next topic, and that's going to be some stuff with the cards. So let's go ahead and move over to some new cards that have came out. We're not going to talk too in depth about the cards themselves, but more so the mechanics that they released. And one in particular is a new shift mechanic. So shift obviously is not a new mechanic in and of itself. However, the way that you shift is different on a couple of cards. And for this example I have on board, we have Diablo. This his shift mechanic is shift, discard an action card. And so there are several different versions of this shift. There's ones with discard locations, one with discard items, ones where you got to discard 2 cards. So there's different versions of this. As far as what I've seen, it's all discard cards. I haven't seen any other ones like shuffle into your deck, or it's all discard. So I don't know if there will be different ones, if they're gonna stick with they're all gonna be discard to shift. But yeah, so going over this action in particular, I think this adds an extra element to the game, and I don't think it's game breaking or anything, just for the simple fact that you have to still have that other character on board. So for example, for Diablo, they're going to have a turn 1 Diablo for this to even matter, because if you have a turn 2 Diablo, like, I mean, I guess technically if you have a turn 2 Diablo, you can discard a card that turn and shift it immediately, since you don't have to, there's no cost to it. So theoretically you can shift on the same turn that you play a particular character. But you know, I haven't done too much thinking about it. I don't know whether or not that's effective, if that's good for you, if that's bad for you. I don't really know. But yeah, I mean, especially with green steel running rampant, and you know, assume there's going to be more discard cards. There is another one, I think we don't talk about Bruno, it's called, where actually it's a random discard, which I was going over with Germax before, like off stream. Is just, I love, and I did this in Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a particular card, I think it was called like Laval Dragon or something. I forgot what the name was, but basically it was, if you played it, you got to randomly discard a card from your opponent's hand. And there's something, I don't know why I don't play green steel more, because there's something about discarding cards from your opponent's hand and just seeing what they have to get rid of that just brings a little bit of joy. Maybe that's just a little like demon in me. I don't know what it is, but
yeah, baby,
there's something so satisfying with seeing like, oh, they had a, you know, you play Lucifer, and when they actually don't have an action to get rid of and they discard the last 2 cards in their hand, you're like, I love this, baby. I love this. So how do you guys feel about it? I know Germax, you probably, I mean, yeah, you love discard obviously, but if we're talking about the shift in particular, where now you got to discard a particular card, how do you think this really affects the mechanic itself? Do you think this is do you like this? Do you not like this? What are your overall feelings about it?
Sure. So I'll give 2. I'll give the bias side. The bias side of the shift is I absolutely love it, because if I'm going to continue to play Prince John, I'm not only drawing on your turn when you're shifting and discarding, I'm now drawing on my turn when I force you to discard even more cards.
Well,
yes, please.
I think the reverse way. Like you're already making your opponent discard, but now they do it on their turn and you still draw.
Yeah, isn't that what I said?
I think you reversed it. You're like, not only.
Well, same thing, because if it's
way.
their turn and I have Prince John and they have to discard a card to shift,
yep.
I'm drawing a card off that.
Yep.
So I'm drawing on both turns. I'll take that all day. As for shifting and not having to pay, I think we're going to have to see, you know, the more top end. Because if I could play a 1-drop and then shift discard an action into a 5, 6, 7 drop, that's kind of just like going to be overpowering for a few turns. Yeah. You know, I think that's where we're really going to see card creation and all of that stuff, and how well thought out things are. Because, you know, if I have a 1-drop and the next thing you know, I shift into a 6 that has ward, like, what are we doing? You know?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, Oberon, ultimately, you know, how do you feel about it? Do you like the idea of having another avenue to shifts other than just waiting to be able to pay the cost? Or are you against this? Like, what's your overall feelings about it?
I think it makes the game faster. I think you, instead of waiting to play stuff, you're playing it earlier. I think it also makes your deck building a little bit different. I might play more actions now because of the shift ability. Because Germax is right. If there's a broken 6-drop that comes out that's shift discard 2 action cards,
sure,
but it's a 3/3 that quests for 3 type deal, cool. I'll play that turn.
But also, I mean, sorry, just to interject too, like the idea of it is, like, for example, with this card, you have to have an action card in your hand or you can't even shift. So that adds an element. Yeah.
I also think this card is kind of broken because it says every time you draw a card. So if I shift it on turn 2, every single time you're drawing, unless you're playing steel, I'm drawing cards out of it. More cards out of it. So I do think that if it's that level of a backbreaking ability, like, if I'm removing stuff out of my hands to be able to play this, the ability must be worth it. And I think there's definitely going to be some vanilla shift cards out there that you're going to be like, oh, well, why would I ever give up that kind of card? Right? If it says shift, discard a card with ink 5, okay, I'm probably not going to do that. But an action card, cool, that's not that big of a deal. I could see this in like a green steel kind of sorts because they've run enough action.
Right.
So I think it's a good way to wrinkle in some new abilities. And I like that they're starting with shift first before you do anything else. Because shifting is just and there's cards that coming off the amount of shift creatures you have in play do X, Y, or Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's making people build different decks, and it's more Floodborn anyway. And so as a result of the Floodborn, you're having more abilities as well. Very pro ability. I like the thing that they're doing, and it can only get better from here.
Sure. And moving on to the next mechanic, it's still in the shift cat, or no, it's not shift, but it's the same mechanic that we've had, just in a different way, which is singing songs. Now we have something called Sing Together. So for example, on this card, second star to the right, that costs 10 and is uninkable. Sing Together is any number of you or your teammates' characters with total cost 10 or more may exert to sing this song for free. Okay, wait, so chosen player. So I read this kind of wrong. Initially, I thought this was just like you could sing this song, use this song, and sing with multiple of your characters. But this almost kind of sounds like this is making its way into like multiplayer games and with teammates. Because it says any number of your teammates' characters, not any number of your characters. So, well, that kind of shifts the topic a little bit with this card in particular. It looks like they're heading towards a more team format, or there's going to be a format with the team. And I mean, I know they've not they as in Ravensburger, but there's been an event where they tried a kind of team-oriented game, like a multiplayer game, but you have your two other teammates. They did like a 3 versus 3. I know One Piece does it. I don't know. I mean, Germax, you could speak to Pokemon if they do it or whatever. That is interesting. I'm interested to play it, and I think it's always good that more formats come in to a game. And just because that helps with the competitive aspect. It helps with the actual player base. Not everyone wants to just play straight up 1v1. They're not competitive in that sense, but playing with a team, maybe they're up to it. Maybe they enjoy that. My particular, I'm always been the type of person where there's the main game and everything else kind of feels like mini games, and I'd rather just play the main thing. I'd rather try to be as good as I can and get my name out there as best as I can as far as the official game, which in this case is just normal constructed 1v1. However, I am interested in your guys' thoughts. So, Oberon, starting with you this time, how do you feel like about a more team-oriented format? Is that something you'd be interested in? Do you like the idea? Because do you even think that's what this card means, or do you think it does mean like sing with as many characters of yours? But I take this as they're saying like multiplayer games, like you and your teammates. Like, what do you think about that? What's your speculation? How do you take this? And then how do you feel about like a multiplayer format like that?
Sure. I find the multiplayer format, so like as a Magic player, I find it very similar to EDH.
Sure.
I think that there are definitely some cards that are only designed for multiplayer, like as an multiplayer all-stars. I'm a fan of it, honestly. I think it gets a lot of people who don't want to play competitively into the game. It also lets you branch out your creativity and provide more flexible decks that are more like playing Aladdin and Shift Aladdin and doing 2 lore from everyone rather than just one player. Like, that makes me build my deck a little bit differently. In terms of these together cards, I think they're going to be broken. I really do. Especially stuff with like Ursula.
Oh yeah.
Like if I do a green purple with this and use it to sing along with it and draw 10 cards.
Yeah, I wonder how that does work. I don't even know.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't have to be a singular singing, right? If you're singing multiple things, it's still singing the card.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I could pull that up. But yeah, go ahead. Continue on what you were saying.
So as a result of that, like I think these sing together cards have to be very powerful because of the amount of cost you're taking, right? If you're singing 10, especially with that new like Ariel sing 7 for 4, play that in a 3-drop, and suddenly I can draw 5 cards turn 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sings a song.
Whenever this character sings a song, you may play. So in theory, that would mean it. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say whenever this character sings a song alone, or whenever this character alone sings a song. Yeah, that is actually crazy. Now you draw. Right? Now chosen person draws 10 instead of 5.
Yes.
So Germax, or sorry, Oberon, you still have more.
Yeah. So I think that like this is, especially with the big singers that are coming out, this is the way to go. Like this is cooler mechanics. And also, like, you have to quest a little bit differently this time. It's using your high mana values, high ink values. Sing Together seems like a mechanic that is evenly based on the fact of like what you're doing with it and the amount of cost you have for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see the inclusion of as high of a cost to be detrimental to it. So, will it see mainstay play immediately? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But do I think there's definitely a deck where you're going to either ramp into being able to play these big singers right away? Yes. Or like sing songs twice, not just Ursula, but like for a specific ink value? Yes. 100%.
Sure. Germax, what are your overall thoughts about it? Do you like the idea of a multiplayer? And you know, go over, you know, does Pokemon have something like that? Do you like the idea of it? Is it for you? Is it not? You know, overall feelings about it.
Sure. So, first of all, Pokemon does not have, the trading card game at least does not have a team aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
As for, you know, I tend to look at everything as a business first. It's Disney, right? You know, when they come out with movies, they're putting subtle adult things in there just to make adults like to watch it. Kids like it. You know, everybody likes certain Disney movies, right?
Sure.
So why would they not take that same approach to everything that they do? Sure, Ravensburger is a little different, whatever, but you know, they're all under that same umbrella.
Yeah.
And if I can get, you know, if I already have the one person competitive people, now I can get, you know, groups of people that would like to play together, and you just want to be an all inclusive, like, hell yeah, I'm all for that. I think that, you know, if they came out with a 3v3 tournament for 10K, I'm playing it. We're all playing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if they do bigger events that's team, it's going to draw in competitive people as well. Or if there's just a way to, you know, you and your friends get together on a Friday night and you're running 2v2s, 3v3s at the shop or whatever. As for the Sing Together, I think it's cool. If Ursula can do that shit twice, I'm gonna like it even more. So we'll have to see what
Dude,
what comes out.
With this song too, deal 3 damage. Now it deals 6 to up to 3, or deals 3 to another 3. Obviously, so you can choose out more. But that's that's you'll play Green Steel just for this and Ursula. That's insanity, dude.
It's like, imagine playing the draw 5, right? You do that twice to make your opponent draw 10 after they've already played 2 or 3 whole new worlds.
That's insane.
And I got Prince John out, and I'm just like, it's like sorting through my deck like I'm making a list.
That's crazy. I can't believe. I don't know, but yeah. I mean, that's kind of funny. I didn't read the actual mechanic. I read a lot of the different cards that there were, but I didn't actually read what it said. So reading that live now, it just completely shifted what I felt about it. But
wait, actually, pull that back up for a second.
This one.
Yeah.
Put all opposing characters with.
Your teammates. Okay, I thought, I looked at it for a quick second before you close it. I thought it just said your teammates would change everything, but
oh yeah, no,
it's you and yours. Gotcha.
But all right, moving on to the fan favorite from last episode.
Finally.
So we're gonna close out with this. We're gonna go over our meta deck rankings, our power rankings now at this point. And I think last week I kind of went over, you know, I picked a deck list or I picked a certain color combination and I said, you know, where we feel it's at. But I want to do this. We're going to each start with our 8th and then go all the way up to our 1st. And then that's when I'll do the math, put it all together, and we'll come to a close as far as what the Lost in Lorcana power rankings are this week. And so starting off at number 8 for me, I'm going to have to put Amber Ruby in that spot. A lot of this is just based off of what I saw at championships and just how I feel as for the deck overall. It feels like it's a viable deck. It's good. Like, it's definitely something you can play and you can do well with, especially in the right hands. And it has I've seen it win a couple of championships. So it's viable for sure. And playing it when I played it, you know, it's very fun to play. I just think stacking up against the rest, maybe I just need to play it more, or maybe I need to play against it more. I just don't think it's as good as any of the others that we have here. But of all the color combinations you could ever come up with right now and that people are playing, I think it's 8th. So that's not bad. And I definitely think you can bring it into a challenge and do well do I think I think maybe one person out of everyone could make it to top cut, but I just don't see it having many more versions of it making it. And for that reason, I do have it in my 8th spot. So starting off, we'll start off with Germax here. What is in your 8th spot? Which color combo?
8th spot, Amber Ruby, baby.
It's also in your 8th spot? Okay, any particular reason?
So, yeah, a few. So it's funny because as we were prepping for this, I was scrolling through the Lorcana TCG, and someone posted their list, and it's Amber Ruby and said they won 4 events. And it was really hard for me to not comment saying that if I went to a library with 8 people, 7 of them were kids, I could win with the starter deck. So I didn't post that because I was raised correctly. The deck is trash. You know, if you want to play it to have fun, go for it. But if you're a competitive player looking to win, you should be disgusted with yourself for playing this deck.
Okay. I love it. I love this. This is why he's here. Oberon, what's your more to the ground version? I'm assuming it's Amber Ruby, but maybe it's not.
It is not.
It Amethyst Steel.
Actually.
Amethyst Steel?
Yes.
Okay.
I find it to be... The only reason I say Amber Ruby is because I don't think Amber Ruby doesn't have any bad matchups. It just doesn't have any good matchups.
Sure.
Right? That's how I felt about it. Versus Amethyst Steel, I think is a very gimmicky deck, personally.
Okay.
I saw one tournament where it top 8'd, and that was the one you and I were at, Johnny.
Sure.
That was it. The rest of it, not a single deck in the field.
Yeah.
And I played at 5 events, and I don't know how many you saw, but I did not see anything else.
I saw 2, and at least against Sapphire Steel, it's not good. The only time it beat me was when it happened to have triple Queen's Castle, and I didn't have Zeus or Times for it. But
it doesn't beat Ruby Sapphire. The Jafar version no longer exists because it's too gimmicky. I think it was a good tempo deck at one point in time, but it no longer really is.
Mm-hmm.
At least Amber Ruby can play like a Be Prepared. I know some versions who do play Be Prepared in it.
Sure.
So I'm gonna have Amethyst Steel as my bottom.
Okay. And now moving on to the 7th, which for me is Amethyst Steel. I like I said, I played it twice. The 4 out of the 5 games that I beat it was like very dominating fashion, and that's very biased. I mean, I have Sapphire Steel. Amethyst Steel, I'm sure, is better against a lot of other things. And I know it's decent. It's decent enough. It's viable enough. Under the right hands. I do think it's a newer version. There have been deck lists here and there. I know I keep forgetting his name. The guy that just wins everything when he plays Amber Steel went over his name's like Syed, I think. I forget his actual full name. He played it. He did well with it. I think he topped, or I think he placed first at an event. Zach Bivens, I believe, played it and placed like top and placed 4th at a big event, and so it was just kind of sprinkled in there, and it's been making more rounds as of late, and so maybe it's just not at a point where it's completely optimized yet. Maybe it has that potential to even be a top 5 deck. I don't know, but as it stands, I just don't think it competes against the rest. Honestly, I think the idea is great, but for me, it's in 7th. Oberon, I'll start with you. You had it at 8th. What's in your 7th spot?
I have Amber Ruby.
So that's your 7th. All right.
Yep. So I'm just flipping it between you two.
Sure.
Same possible reason that you guys said. I mean, I think Amber Ruby does have some good matchups. I think it can aggro you out if you really need to. The draw power is a little lacking, but Mufasa is always interesting to go with. And then you do have some outs when it comes to the Ruby stuff. So I like it much better than I like Amber Steel. Amethyst Steel, sorry.
Sure. Germax, what's your 7th?
Amethyst Steel.
Okay, same as me.
The trash. We'll just get that out of the way. I totally disagree with your counter argument when you're naming naturally gifted, really good players that are taking the deck and doing well with it, because you can hand me any deck, and if I practice enough with it, I will be a winner with it. So, the majority of people that are playing it, it's just play something else.
Maybe. All right, Mr. DeCandio. All right, going for the number 6 spot, I have Emerald Amethyst. And I think Emerald Amethyst is really good. Like I said, I prefer the discard, but I think the other one is very good as well. And maybe it is better. Maybe I just need to play with it more, and I'll end up liking the less discard heavy one more. It doesn't matter either way. It performed well. It tops a lot. I think as far as when I played it, I saw the lines were pretty straightforward. Anything you threw at me, if I had what I needed, I just knew what to play. I guess you could say that about any deck, but I think I think it's easier to see whether or not you have what you need. I think there are certain times where you're looking for the lines based on what you have, and sometimes it takes you a minute to be like, okay, like this will work. I can work with what I have. When I was playing with Emerald Amethyst, I had my hand. As soon as you played what you played, I looked at my hand. I was like, all right, this is the line I have to play, and it was just like very straightforward for me. I'm not saying it's like incredibly easy or anything like that. I get that's what it sounds like I'm saying, but I just felt like it was smooth. That's really what I'm trying to say. I didn't have a real hard time figuring out what I needed. And again, I played a lot of Ruby Sapphire, so I'm sure it's a little easier in that matchup versus if I played Steel, then maybe I'd have to do a little bit more thinking. But overall, I think it's a very viable deck, and especially if you're going to go into an event where you think you're going to be playing Ruby Sapphire, I think it's incredibly viable. I think it has a pretty good matchup against Ruby Amethyst as well. A pretty favorable one, I would say, against that. But I don't think it's better than the other 5, ultimately, like overall. And so that's my number 6 spot. And then as far as we'll start with Germax on this one. What's your number 6?
I don't think any of you are going to agree with it, but this is purely based off of the 6 events that I played with.
Okay.
I gotta go with Amber Steel.
Okay.
Outside of pretty much just one good player that I know that was doing good with it, I don't think I saw any top 4, let alone a very, very, very small amount top 8 in the 6 events that I went to personally.
Sure. Okay. I don't think it's crazy. Oberon, what's your number 6?
For once, I am sad to say this, I agree with Germax.
Sheesh!
Oh, that's what you got? So you have Amber Steel at 6. All right.
I do. I think the showing was not good. I didn't see a lot of it being played. Now, Flutes was being played, but that was about it. I didn't see that many people topping with it. Now, do I think it's a very versatile deck? Yes. Maybe it's just the area where we're at and the meta that's available there.
Mm-hmm.
But even in my top 8, top 4, didn't see any sort of Amber Steel. Now, your argument, Johnny, I think Emerald Amethyst is positioned better than we think it is. It just might have only had one showing here or there. But I think at the current moment, Amber Steel, based on what we saw at championships, was not played well and was not as good of a thing as we thought it was. At least good of a deck as we thought it was. At least
sure.
Not as much as I did.
Okay, so let me follow up. Do you think that's a matter of Ruby Sapphire was so huge? And also, I think people say Amber Steel is like a super favorable matchup. I don't know. I mean, I would say against Amber Steel is a favorable matchup against Emerald Steel. Sorry, but I don't know about that fact, to be honest, because Emerald Steel, if Amber Steel can't get off a whole new world before Emerald Steel starts taking out your cards, I mean, yeah, Cinderella does suck to play against, especially on the draw when you know to let the Storm Rage on. But okay, if you don't get that whole new world off, you're gonna run out of gas, and that Cinderella is not gonna really matter all that much at the end of the day when Green Steel starts drawing from their Prince Johns, which you can't target anyway from making you discard and everything like that. So I don't think it's as crazy as in your mind. Like that's actually where my 4th and 5th place got really hard for me to decide. So I'm not in like super disagreements with you, but yeah, we'll go ahead and move on then to our 5th spot. And with the 5th, well, did we go with you, Germax? Did we already? You put it at 6. Yeah, we did go. Okay, so moving on to number 5. For me, I have Amber Steel. So only one rank above you. I do think a lot of it is the pilot. I did see a fair amount of it getting top 4, like top 8, top 4. One of our buddies placed, I think they got 4 stitches and they played Amber Steel the whole time. I saw another person place top 4 yesterday with Amber Steel. There was a guy that plays top 8 at the very first event with Amber Steel. I do think it is a matter of what you're playing against, what you get kind of lucked into, and also the person there. Because my follow-up, I think I was going to ask, but ultimately is with Ruby Sapphire. I mean, if you're playing a lot of Ruby Sapphires, yeah, then you're kind of out of luck. And same thing, like I said, with Emerald Steel, if you don't have the whole new world and you run out of that gas, or they take out your grab your swords, that you either, if you're a player, I don't want to say a bad player, but that's kind of what I'm alluding to. If you're a player who, hasn't learned by now that you should not be holding songs in your hand, if you keep it, and they're just going to take it out with Ursula, or if you happen to draw into it with your mulligan, that sucks, because then it's Ursula and you didn't even want to keep it. And so it becomes an unfavorable matchup there. So is it a product of that? We just saw a lot of Ruby Sapphire and a lot of Emerald Steel. That's my thing. I have it in the 5th spot. What do you guys have for number 5? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that aspect, that it's the pilot and it's also based on what you're playing a lot? If you're playing your unfavorable matches all the time, it kind of sucks. But then also go over your fifth place spot. Oberon, go ahead, starting with you.
Man, I'm gonna be very controversial now. Unfortunately,
Yes.
Let's see.
I got Sapphire Steel at 5.
Man, this is crazy because our power rankings from last week are gonna be so different, dude.
I do.
Sapphire
I think
Steel.
it's more
Okay.
more because of it has good matchups, but it also, I think it's so much into the whole new world ramp combo that if you don't have that available, you're kind of screwed.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you don't have a Mickey Mouse, you don't have a not Lucky Dime, a Quill, your deck kind of runs out. Like, sure, you're gonna gain some lore from the Captain Hook and Smee combo.
Mm-hmm.
I just if we're going based off what we saw and how we felt, that kind of thing, I didn't think Sapphire Steel had a good showing. I didn't think it was a good deck for sure. But it wasn't as good as I would have wanted to for the ability. Now, I know, I'm sorry, Johnny, I know it's your baby, and I know you love that deck and you play it very frequently. I wasn't as big of a fan, unfortunately.
Okay. Germax, what's your 5th spot?
Personally, I wouldn't allow that disrespect in my own Twitch chat, but anyway, I think to counter off of what Oberon said a little bit, I think that deck is a lot harder to play, so there won't be too much of a showing. But when somebody does play it and constantly does good, that's proof alone that the deck does work.
Yeah.
But this is also going to be controversial. In my 5th slot, regardless of what fucking graphs you pull out and show me, I'm going with Ruby Amethyst.
Okay.
What? Oh.
Because I on the analytical side of stuff, sure, if you have a 30-person tournament with 20 motherfuckers playing the deck, people are making top 8.
Okay. I can see that. Yeah, I agree with part of that for sure.
And I also think that it's easier to play. So if you're not the best player, you can pick it up and do well.
Yeah. The funny thing is I've heard from 2 different people and 2 good players that came from Magic. They say, when I'm teaching my friend, it's so weird because it's 2 completely different people. One is like a public figure, I forget who said it, and one was a friend of mine who got first place in 3 championships or something. Both of them had said, when I teach my Magic friends how to play, I start them off with Ruby Amethyst because it has everything, and it's kind of a all collective, pretty consistent, easy to figure out. Again, it's hard because a lot of people are just going to completely disagree with that and be like, it's just not easy to figure out. But I don't agree. I think it's pretty straightforward with what you have to do. There are definitely certain lines, and you can tell from people that you play that, for me, I just start to salivate. I just love when people do the snake bounce and I have Smee on board. I'm like, yes, please. Thank you for the free 2 lore. And I know you're going to swing into it with either your snake or you're going to bounce it with your fox. And then you're just going to do a 1-for-1 trade and just let me eat and ramp up and destroy you in the late game when I pull out my lucky dime and you can't do anything about it. Like, there are some players that 100% do not know that the lines are like, you got to play the 1-drop and then you play the Cusco and then you play the minis and just literally go straight forward. And there's even a Lorcana Podcast. There's one of the guys on there, Brennan, I believe is his name. Really awesome podcast. Listen to it every week. And they also have some really cool videos. He put out like a deck tech for Ruby Amethyst, and I agree with him with a lot of things, pretty much everything that he said, as far as like a lot of people don't play that deck like an aggro deck. But the thing is, once you end up figuring out how to play it, like once you like kind of just make that little small adjustment in your mind and you're like, oh, this one little switch I need to make in how I play this deck, then all of a sudden I think it becomes a very easy deck to play. There's not a lot of things you need to learn about it in my opinion. Like obviously you'll make mistakes just like in any other deck, but I think ultimately it's the easiest one to kind of pick up and go. Or at least one of the easier ones.
Exactly. Plays to my point.
Sure. And all right, so now we're gonna move on to our 4th places, and this is where it was hard for me because my 4th is Ruby Amethyst, and I had a really tough time deciding if I was going to put Amber Steel 4th and Ruby Amethyst 5th or reversed. And I ended up doing it Ruby Amethyst at 4. And it's for the reason is like, it's just the numbers, man. Like, yeah, sure. The amount of people that make top cut, if you're playing, if out of 30 people, 15 people are playing Ruby Amethyst, you're going to probably see 4 people make top 8 with Ruby Amethyst. Like there's a good chance, a solid chance that you see that happening. So I agree with that, but also it's won so many, and it's just like, how much does it need to win for you to be like, okay, this is legitimate. Like you can't look away from it now. It is one of the top decks. I may even have it too low. Like 4 may even be, I maybe I should have it at 3, or 2. I don't know. Like, but for me right now, I still think the other 3 decks that I have above it are stronger decks. Ultimately, if you took 2 of the best pilots for each color combination, which one would likely win? And I think the other 3 decks would end up winning over Ruby Amethyst. But I do think Ruby Amethyst is overall very good. It has no super weak weaknesses or super strong strengths. I think it definitely has favorable matchups and some unfavorable matchups. But at the end of the day, I think it's the most consistent. And so that's why I have it at number 4. Jermac, starting with you, what is your 4th place?
Yeah, I did want to just bounce off and say to your point too, that deck, it's easy to win and not be good.
Okay.
And for my number 4, I have Emerald Amethyst.
You have Emerald Amethyst at 4. All right. Reason?
I think the deck's nasty. It has a lot of good plays, but I also think that once you're going against it, you can kind of see the plays, and you could almost get to a point where you're like, okay, yeah, they're just outpacing me, and my lines just aren't going to cover everything that they're doing.
Sure.
And, if you get a couple good matchups where you could just like cloud kick the shit out of them constantly and you just swarm the board, then you're good. Because, I got cloud kicked. I got my teeth cloud kicked in one of the events, and I was not having fun.
Okay. O'Brien, what's your 4th?
I got Emerald Amethyst at 4 as well. I think it's a great. I think it's positioned very well for the best of 2 format in the future. I think really like only a really good Amber Steel is its really weakness. But from an aggro or a mid tempo perspective, once you get the Cloud Kicker or the Rapid Bounce combo going, you're drawing so many cards. I think it's doing very well and will be doing well in the future. And I know it started off well as like the deck to go to, and it won a couple of events right as set 3 came out and then fell off. But now I think it's back in the races.
All right. Moving on
Boys,
to
Joker. I like it.
moving on to the top 3. So for my third, I have Sapphire Steel, and so I think it's in the same spot I had it before, or maybe I had it second. I don't remember, but I do. So if I were to be playing the same deck I was playing in week 1, I probably would have had it below Ruby Amethyst. I probably would have had it at 4. But since I teched out this different deck, and I got inspiration from someone else on Twitter where I saw that they 2-0'd Ruby Sapphire in top 8 twice, and I was like, oh, I'm playing this one now. But I did tweak it a bit. I did tweak it a little bit. I made some changes to it that I think helped it a little bit more. And it felt so good to play. Like anything that I played this weekend, Sunday was a weird one. I had a couple things that went on, including like a wrong deck list because I forgot from Friday. I had made some adjustments, so I didn't adjust it in the deck list and all that. So aside from Sunday, Friday, and Saturday. So Friday I placed top 4 with a really devastating loss that I shouldn't have lost, and then on Saturday I placed second, only losing to Ruby Sapphire after I had beaten it twice, and then I played the same person in the finals and ended up losing to it. It felt so good, and I just didn't feel bad really going first or second against any deck, except for Ruby Sapphire. Going second against that deck always feels bad, but every other deck I felt so confident. It felt like anytime I lost, it was just out of my control. It felt like bad draws and things, and I know that's not always the case. I know it feels like that a lot. Some of the times it's just you made like that one bad play, and there are times where that happens where in a game I'm like, damn, I shouldn't have done that one play. But if I would have made just that one play, it would have completely shifted the outcome of the game. And so I think in a deck like that, it's like, yeah, it can be tough. The lines can be hard to see sometimes, but I think I got into a point where I see the lines pretty well most of the time, and with a pretty optimized version of the deck, to where I just feel like it is a very very good deck against everything, and it's even better now against Ruby Sapphire than it ever was. I still don't think it's favorable by any means against Ruby Sapphire, but instead of it being like a 80% to like loss rate or a 20% win rate, I think it's like at 60-40 now with the version that I have. So that's why I have it at 3. And we'll move on to, I don't remember who I went first with last time, so I'll just say Germax. What do you have as at number 3?
So for number 3, I have Ruby Sapphire.
Mm-hmm.
I think the deck is amazing.
Sure.
I think that, at least in Illinois, Oberon is a top 3 Ruby Sapphire player, and he's not 3, and he's not 2.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
I disagree with that, bro.
Whoa. What y'all doing after the stream? He's
The only reason why it's not in that 1 or 2 spot is because it just has a nearly impossible matchup against one of the other decks in the top 3. And, I believe that if that's the case, then you can't necessarily be in the top 2 decks.
Okay. Oberon, what do you have at number 3?
I got Emerald Steel at 3.
Emerald Steel at 3. All right, so our top 3 is looking different. I like it.
Yeah, and I think the major reason why Emerald Steel is at 3 is because of the different versions that exist.
Okay.
If we're playing Germax's version, I'm thinking more of 1-2. If we're thinking like the Bucky Steel discard version or
Trash,
or both versions exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't say it's not a green steel deck. I think it's a little more unfavored. Because there's so many variations, it makes it a very formidable deck, but it also has a lot more counters available. Mm-hmm. Is it still top tier? Would I bring it to any sort of tournament? Yes, for sure. But is it in my top 2? No, unfortunately.
All right. So now we are moving on to the top 2. So for my number 2, I have Ruby Sapphire. So it was my number one last week, but I have it dropping, and it sucks because I hated Germax for what he said last week as his number one, and now it's my number one. And
Oh, I can't wait till we get into it.
But Ruby Sapphire I have at number 2 just because it's just so strong against the field right now. I think its glaring weaknesses are Ruby Amethyst and Emerald Amethyst, and I think Emerald Steel is still favorable. I just don't think it's as glaring as the Ruby Amethyst, Emerald Amethyst if they're played right correctly. But it's so good against just everything else. It's so dumb. Like, I don't know what it is. Ruby Sapphire players just have this knack of always having a popsicle one jump flav. It just never misses ever. It feels like they have 19 cards in hand. It truly does, because if they need one jump because you didn't quest with anything, they got one jump. If you quested with something, guess what? They have Queen of Hearts on turn 2. If they have turn 5 and you quest with literally anything that you played, regardless, it could have 6 defense, well, it's dead because they have Maui in their hand. Don't know how, they just start with all of them. And if you have beasts that you play, they ramped up to turn 6 before you can even get a draw off, because they're just going to play Madame Medusa and kill your beast. It happens every single time. They have exactly what they need. And guess what? As soon as they have enough to play Bell and Dime on the same turn, they have it. If you discard their Dime, it's okay. They have Tamatoa, so they'll just grab it back. No worries. It is stupid. I hate it so much. I might play it. I don't know. We'll find out. But it's my number 2 because of the fact that it literally has every single thing that it needs at every moment. It feels like it has so much filtering, so much draw. It's just like inevitable that they're going to find exactly what they need. And that is why it's my number 2. So we'll start with Oberon. Where do you have it? Or what do you have at number 2, I should say?
I've got Sapphire Ruby.
Okay.
And as a pilot of this deck, I think it's the greatest deck that exists. However, in the overall meta, I don't think it's the best deck, and that's why not many people play it. 2 reasons. One, it is not honestly, I didn't see that many. I really didn't see that many. Except for that one day where half the field was Ruby Sapphire, and that was a pain. The rest of it, I was like, oh, there's like 2 or 3 of us. That's fine. I'll take that.
Sure.
I think it's a very difficult deck to pilot. I think we don't have the answers all the time, but we have more outs than most people think we do. I think that it has an almost auto loss to aggro, which is the deck's biggest problem. But at the same time, in terms of like with the addition of Lucky Dime, this deck is so golden. That's not even funny. It's just like, I feel as a player, I feel favored, but as a deck, I don't feel favored all the time.
Okay.
Whenever I play Germax with Emerald Steel, I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna have to have a perfect aggro type of removal to be able to get here. Or when I play against Emerald Amethyst, I was like, I can only do so much, and I'm still gonna lose to it. Or if I play somebody who plays Amber Steel and out aggro's me, and they're just like, okay, like 3 1-drops turn 2, and I'm like, all right, well, I can't really do anything to support this.
Yeah.
I think the item versions, and by the way, I have to disagree with Germax. J-Bomb is 100% the best Ruby Sapphire player I've ever seen, at least in the Chicagoland area or wherever area.
Be humble, buddy. Be humble.
Nah, fam. I have lost to that man every single time. So until I can beat him, I can't say anything else.
He cheats.
No, he does not.
It's because you play 72 cards, my G. He finds his in his probably 64 card deck. So as soon as he plays Grammatala, he just finds what he needs off the top. You still have 8 extra cards to pull from.
So it's I think the deck is positioned well, even come set 4, personally. But at the current moment, it is not my number 1, unfortunately.
All right, Germax, your number 2.
My number 2 is Sapphire Steel.
All right. I
think that deck has an answer to everything. I also believe that Johnny DB is a top 3 Sapphire Steel player in at least Illinois, and he ain't number 3 and he ain't number 2.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it. I don't know.
And that's it for me.
Okay. No, that's cool. That's cool. We're hitting an hour and a half. So, all right. So to finish it off, we have one more spot, and so I'll start off with it's green steel for me. Stop laughing. It's not. You know what? It's number 8. It's number 8. Shift everything up one. Yes. No, it's just so like I said, favorable. Like regardless of if you're going first, if you're going second doesn't even feel like it's that bad. That with the discard, it's just so it puts people in such sticky, weird positions. It single-handedly makes every steel player. It's got to make every steel player consider putting in at least one like Fire the Cannons or one Baboom or something like that, so you don't have to touch that disgusting Cursed Merfolk card. Where you know how I went on a rant about how Ruby Sapphire has everything they literally need all the time? Tell me why green never misses Merfolk ever. It's always Merfolk. They could make a deck of 56 different 1-drops, and Merfolk would be the one that they have in their opening hand every single time. It's actually gross. And you know, for me, for Sapphire Steel, it's not a huge deal playing green steel. I think Sapphire Steel is probably the only like pretty favorable matchup against green steel, but even in that matchup, it's not like a shoo-in. And yeah, I mean, it's just good against everything. The combination of the discard in green with the removal from steel, and with the combination of Ursula being able to double sing, you know, Sudden Chill or Let the Storm Rage On, or Strength of a Raging Fire. There's just so many outs in so many different particular situations. They can make Sapphire Steel discard their hand if for some off chance you're the most unlucky Ruby Sapphire player in all of history, and you don't draw into your high room, and they get rid of your hand, or they get rid of everything except for the uninkable cards that you can't play on turn 3 or 4. It puts everyone in just a situation that does not feel good for them, and for that reason, it's my number 1. And we're gonna go ahead and start off with Germax on this one. I already know what you're gonna say, but go ahead and say it.
Number 1 is Emerald Steel. I'll put a couple different things out there for it.
Okay.
I think that out of all of the decks currently playable, that has one of the only massive differences that you could put in, but still keep that annoying discard core to go against all of your opponents, and then you can pretty much just build it however the hell you want to play better into matchups. And I play it, so it's naturally just going to be the best.
Sure.
And also, you know, on top of the Curse Merfolk thing, we're getting a 1-drop 1/1 with evasive.
Yeah.
Next set. And you have to discard stuff to shift. Like, I'm all in on green, baby. It's probably still going to be steel, but yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And it is number 1. It will be number 1 the next time we do a podcast. It'll be number 1 when it wins in Atlanta. It won't be me because I won't be there. And it will definitely be number 1 when I take it to Chicago and get first place.
All right. So I know you're number 1, Oberon, but go ahead and say it and give your reasoning.
Mine's Ruby Amethyst.
Yep.
I think it's got no bad matchups, actual bad matchups. And while Ruby Sapphire does beat it, it's not like it's an auto win.
Mm-hmm.
I've had tons of times where you've got 2 Queen's Castles out, and I've got no Maui's with the what's it called, the hook, and so I'm just losing to that. I think it's very malleable, very adaptable. There's a reason why it's the most played deck in the championships. I think that deck is, and I will say, as soon as Ruby Amethyst gets some sort of item removal, it is the best deck in the format, and nothing will stop that. That's the only reason why anyone wouldn't want to play it right now. It's because there are so many items and so many Lucky Dimes being rampant. But as soon as Red Purple gets some sort of item removal, GG. Everyone should start playing that deck. And everyone is playing that deck right now also.
Yeah.
But I really do think even the aggro matchup, like sure the blue steel matchup is bad, but just know because they're gonna whole new world you. Don't keep drawing cards. Just play them.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you adapt to that play. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
So I just think it has so many different ways to play that deck, so many outs when you need them. Now, is it an easier deck to play? Possibly. But that doesn't mean you get a bad deck by any means.
Sure. All right. Well, guys, that is the power rankings. So now it's to go over, what at the end of the day, what are the results? So in our 8th place finish, overall, based on where we ranked it as a collective, Amber Ruby is in the 8th place spot. So that's gonna go ahead and take the 8th place spot. And in number 7, we have that followed by Amethyst Steel. So Amethyst Steel gonna be 7th. In the 6th place spot, we have, which is shocking, we have Amber Steel. And this is gonna make some people upset. But hey, it is what it is, man. That's the meta changes weekly. Next week it'll probably be different. Who knows? And then we have in the 5th spot, correct? It's the 5th spot. We have Emerald Amethyst. And in the 4th spot now for the top 4, this is where we're gonna have to vote on it. So what do we think is a better deck? We have to each vote. So Sapphire Steel or Ruby Amethyst. I think if I'm correct, me and Germax have Sapphire Steel better, and Oberon, you have Ruby Amethyst is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, Germax, you have Sapphire Steel better or Ruby Amethyst?
Yeah, I think Oberon just gets outnumbered here, unfortunately.
Yep. So Ruby Amethyst is going to be in that 4th spot here. Then we have Sapphire Steel in the 3rd spot. And then I hate this with a burning passion. I kind of want to just not even skip this part and cut it out.
How do you do a screen cap again? I need to make sure. Control print screen.
Ruby Sapphire is in the number 2 slot. And the number 1 spot does go to our champion, and Emerald Steel. Not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. All jokes, obviously. I hate that. Germax ended up being right from last week. And I thought he was nuts, but it is I would say the best right now. This is our power rankings. This is the Lost and Lorcana power rankings this week. I do want to show, just for fun, before we go, what we had from last week. So I can't really do a side by side, but this is the last week. So we had Sapphire Steel 1, Ruby Sapphire, Amber Steel. Emerald Steel was in 4th. Ruby Amethyst 5th. That's what it looked like.
You can do half and half on the monitor, no?
Yeah,
Half screen.
I don't know how to do that, to be honest.
That's okay, no worries.
All right, but I'll try to figure out for next week, or whenever the next podcast is. But that's the difference. Ruby Sapphire.
Yeah, y'all
stayed the same.
disrespectful. Yeah, I don't know why I'm friends with you
Sapphire
guys.
Steel. I might throw in the up down arrows from the power rankings and spots. Throw that up on Twitter just so we could see. But yeah, that's what it is. At the end of the day, that's how much it's changed. But yeah, that's really all that I have for this episode. I appreciate everyone who's came out and who's followed. Thank you for tuning in to this version of the Lost in Lorcana podcast. Do you guys have anything else to say before we go?
I just want to add that if you didn't get a stitch because you were not good enough to get a stitch, I'm selling mine. You can DM me.
Me too.
All right.
I got a couple.
All right. But with that being said, I hope you guys all have a great day. See ya.
Peace.
Take care.